All right, it's that time. Weather for Weather Geeks time, Thursday evening edition. Thanks for tuning in. We have one thing to talk about in this video pretty much, and that is the hot weather. We have very little precipitation to discuss over the next several days. The heat is going to dominate. This is a big weather story. This will probably be our most significant, longest hot stretch in quite some time, maybe even dating back to 1995 since we've had a stretch like the one coming up. Real briefly, though, I want to talk about last night. I showed this on the 11 o'clock newscast last night. This very impressive-looking storm over west central PA. This is southeast of Pittsburgh, around the Mount Pleasant area. This is the kind of structure you don't see all that often in our part of the country. This is what we kind of call a low precipitation supercell, or an LP supercell. Something you see more often in the plain states. Usually our supercells, if we get supercell thunderstorms around here, are so rain-wrapped that you can't really see the structure that well, but this is a very, very cool-looking storm with a low-hanging wall cloud here, and this did indeed produce a pair of tornadoes last evening. The Weather Service went out and surveyed today and discovered two EF0 tornadoes did touch down around Mount Pleasant up to Palmer's. This is in Westmoreland County, and again, Pittsburgh's up here, so this is several miles southeast of the Pittsburgh area, where this occurred last night at about 8:22. So that's a pretty impressive picture for this part of the country. All right, back here at home today. Pardon me. The day started as we expected. A lot of clouds, even a touch of drizzle in some spots. But then as we got into the afternoon, finally the clouds did clear and led to a really nice late afternoon and evening. You'll see that clearing working in right about now. And just a few fair weather cumulus clouds around for the rest of the afternoon. That was a look up at the clouds from the sky, from the ground. Now from the sky on downward, a look at the satellite loop from today. As soon as the data catches up, it'll loop anyway, showing the dissipation of this deck of stratocumulus clouds. Stratocumulus clouds a little more common in the winter, the spring, the fall. Not as much in the summer, but it does happen sometimes, particularly on the backside of low pressure systems as they move east. You have this wraparound moisture that gets enhanced a little bit by the presence of the Great Lakes, and so you get this deck of fairly low clouds, and sometimes you get a little drizzle that comes out of those clouds. That's what we had earlier on today. All right, across the country this evening, around our heat dome, which is kind of parked over the Plain States, around the periphery of that, you have several severe weather threats this evening. One from eastern Montana through parts of the Dakotas into Minnesota. Another pair of severe thunderstorm watches around the mid-Mississippi Valley and down towards the Gulf Coast region this evening. The heat is nothing to mess around with in the Plain States this evening. These are the heat indexes at 6 o'clock local time in the evening. 111 in Tulsa, 115 in Topeka, and 110 plus, pretty common in a lot of these locations early on this evening. And so we've got a whole bunch of hot weather advisories, watches, warnings out. This includes Chicago, Grand Rapids, South Bend, Indianapolis, St. Louis, back to Kansas City and Memphis as well. Wouldn't be surprised if the Weather Service in both Cleveland and Wilmington added some Ohio counties to these heat advisories by tomorrow for the weekend. Now, do we reach heat advisory criteria around here? It'll be a close call, but it doesn't really matter. The impacts are what matters. Whether or not we're under an advisory, the weather's not going to change either way, and it's just going to get really, really hot. And for those sensitive to heat, it'll be pretty tough over the next several days. We'll talk about all that in just a second. But first, the sky is nice and clear this evening. This will be a couple of hours after sunset. The moonrise isn't until 10 o'clock-ish, and then it'll get high enough in the sky that you can see this nice trifecta of Mars, the moon, and Saturn in the sky this evening. Now, the moon was technically full last night a little after midnight, and Saturn was actually like right here, real close to the moon in the sky last night. They're a little farther apart tonight, but still pretty close together. The full strawberry moon was last night, but still the moon big and bright in the sky out there for tonight. Big picture for your Friday TGIF. And here comes the heat. 89 is our forecast, not near the record of 99. So it's going to be a rapid warm-up in the morning. We'll be by lunchtime well up into the 80s. Now the dew points tomorrow they'll be elevated, but they're not going to be crazy high just yet. I think the dew points will become much more intolerable for most people as we get into Saturday and into Sunday. I showed this last night. I want to show it again, just how impressive this weather map is. This is a look at the upper levels of the atmosphere. Those are the white lines. And then you have the surface temperatures plotted up as well. And when you see a big circular area like this, that's a big ridge of high pressure. And I mean, this thing is just enormous. This thing spans, you really could measure it from Southern California all the way to New England. It's 2,500 miles across. That is a huge heat dome that's going to park over the middle of the country, and not just for a day or two, several days in a row. Again, I covered a little bit of this last night, but we've had a hard time getting really hot in recent years at the Youngstown Warren Airport. It has not been above 92 since July of 2012. Back in 2014, we had no 90-degree days. So far this year, 92, our high water mark on May the 28th. We hit 91 earlier this month, twice, I think, 2 days in a row, but we have not hit 92 since May. Our forecast is warmer than that, though. In fact, we've got a bona fide heat wave coming our way. The technical definition for a heat wave in our part of the country, certainly this would not be the case in Orlando or Atlanta or places like that, but at our latitude, we generally consider it to be 3 or more consecutive days of 90-degree plus temperatures. That's what constitutes a heat wave in the technical sense. And the last time we had an official heat wave was back in 2013, July 17th, 18th, and 19th. Now, it didn't get warmer than 92, but we had 90, 91 3 days in a row back in July of 2013. That's the last time it happened here. And our forecast is for not only an official heat wave, but one of the longest ones we've had in many years coming up. We'll be talking a lot about the heat index. This is all about the apparent temperature for the human body, kind of the same idea as the wind chill in the winter. With the heat index, it's all about how efficiently your body can cool itself off. We cool ourselves off by sweat. That sweat evaporates, that evaporative cooling process, same idea as air conditioning, where water evaporates and cools the air. Same idea with our bodies, and our sweat just does not evaporate as efficiently when it's really humid outside. It's why on a day with very low humidity, even if it's kind of warm, when you get out of the pool, you sometimes can get kind of chilly pretty quickly on a day with really low humidity because the evaporation is very efficient. But when the humidity is high, it just doesn't work that way, and that makes it hard for your body to cool off. And that's why people who are going to be exerting themselves outdoors, if you work outdoors, if your job requires outdoor work, you just got to be real careful over the next few days. We're going to be kind of in this 90 to 100 range for heat index values, which means heat cramps can occur pretty quickly. Got to stay hydrated to cut down on the chances of heat cramps. Heat exhaustion also a possibility. And in the worst case scenario, heat stroke can occur. Now, heat stroke can occur for even healthy individuals when the heat index gets astronomical. But even when the heat index is 95 to 100, heat stroke is something that for some people is a possibility. So this is just one run of one model. This is the latest run of the GFS model showing afternoon heat index values. You see this dip Tuesday and Wednesday, don't buy it. All that is this particular run of the model painting a stray thunderstorm over the airport in the middle of the afternoon and knocking down the numbers. The chances of thunderstorms middle of next week are not very high. So these numbers, you can probably copy and paste those right into Tuesday and Wednesday as well. It's going to be well up into the 90s for the heat index starting Saturday and continuing through next week. Daily records are out of reach Friday and Monday, still within reach Saturday and Sunday. I've taken Sunday's high back up to 95, just 1 degree shy of the record. And look how long this is going to last. I mean, we've got 90 plus Saturday through Thursday. That's 6 in a row. And we've got 89 tomorrow. So if we hit 90 tomorrow, which isn't outside of the realm of possibility at all, that would make it 7 days in a row where it seems pretty likely we'll be at 90 or above. This would make it the longest stretch of 90 degree plus temperatures since August of 1995. If we do make it to 7, actually, that would tie 1988. We had 6 in a row back in 95. If we get to 7 in a row, that would take us back to 1988, since we've had this kind of hot weather for that many days in a row. A lot of stats to throw at you. This is what we're going to be doing on this video for the next few days because, again, we don't have a whole lot else to talk about other than the heat, and there's lots of stats that are significant with what we expect to have to happen here. 4th of July, of course, coming up on Wednesday. It's going to be a hot one, not like this, but certainly hotter than the most recent 4ths. This will be the hottest one since 2012 when it was up in the 90s. And it's likely to be dry on the 4th. A small chance of a thunderstorm, an air mass thunderstorm, a random pop-up when it gets this hot and humid is something we can't rule out next week. There's going to be no front, no trigger, really nothing to cause a thunderstorm other than just it's so hot, so humid that some air parcels can rise high enough to maybe lead to a stray storm. But generally speaking, pretty dry pattern taking us through the next week to 10 days. This is good news for a lot of people. You know, a lot of people have been complaining about the wet spring and summer. June is going to go into the record books as a top 10 wettest June. So a stretch of dry weather is not necessarily a bad thing for most people. Then, as we go into the longer range, notice what starts to happen here. We start to see some subtle changes. I talked about this yesterday, that I think as we go into mid-July, we're going to start to see the heat relax some and focus and center itself more on the west. When the west gets hot, typically the east cools down. And that's kind of what I expect as we go deeper into July. But I'll tell you, the first week of July, this is going to be one heck of a heat wave. That's it for Weather Geeks tonight. I'll see you tonight on 21 News at 11. Don't forget to download the Storm Tracker 21 app to stay up to date on what to expect as Heat Wave 2018. We'll brand it that. How about that? Heat Wave 2018 gets underway tomorrow.